Hey, they're announcing that they're bringing it to Broadway.
Disney has had some failures in 2024.
Yeah, but they also have some decent wins.
Yeah,
too.
it was more of a win.
wins.
It was
They've
more
had
of a
some good
win than a
wins.
loss for them this year.
Yeah, box office wise, absolutely.
box
Even
office-
Mufasa's actually surprisingly doing
something's
all right.
up with that. I smell.
Well, we're going to
shenanigans.
talk about that. They're definitely playing some shit with the theaters. We're going to come back to that. But the 2024 L's for Disney are, of course, Acolyte. Bob Iger is getting some heat too because of ABC
Agatha
News.
was pretty bad too.
This is
Agatha
the thing. Like,
made
maybe
money.
at the box office they made money, like overall, but I feel like with all the shows that they came out with and the amount of money, like, remember the budget for the Acolyte? What's the budget for what did you just say? Verbal? What show?
Agatha
Well,
was very low
Agatha-
budget.
Agatha had like no budget.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's a bad example, but there was some pretty high budgets in a lot of their Disney Plus shows that they released, and a lot of them tanked in viewership.
Well, yeah, it wasn't just the Acolyte.
No, that's right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, overall, maybe at the box office, yeah, okay, maybe they turned a profit.
Well,
but I still think with how much
Lucasfilm loves wasting money. Did you see that report
True.
saying like the combined Andor budget for seasons 1 and 2 is like 600 something? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
What a and
I'm sure the budget for Grogu and Mando is going to be insane.
Oh, that's gonna blow out.
The thing
but
is,
Andor though, people like it that have watched it, but no one that's a small number of people that have actually watched that show. Like, no one turned out.
I loved it. Andor, I thought was a great show.
I've heard really great things about Andor, but do you really think they should be spending $600 million on a show that nobody watches?
But here's the thing: it's already spent. They already spent the money. Like it was. It was for 2 seasons.
100%. I kind of feel like it's a little bit like what they did with Rings of Power, where they spent $1 billion in the first season for the budget, but that's supposed to drag out over the next course of the 10 seasons that they're doing. So I kind of feel like they did this sort of a similar thing with Andor, where the first season's budget was definitely higher than the second season. I think it was like $350 or something for the first, but then like what, $250 or something for the second.
That's still too much.
I agree. I
100%
agree.
That's a lot of money.
It
And
is.
you guys got to remember how they structure the money on this shit, right? Like it's Disney paying them. Or they're having Disney Plus pay them for making this show. So
They're paying
Lucasfilm. Yeah, they're paying themselves at the end of the day, but it's still like somebody's taking the loss. But it's not Lucasfilm; it's Disney Plus who's taking the loss, and they're lumping that all in with all their Disney Plus losses that they're already going to lose anyway. It's just a big shell game at the end of the day.
But do we take, like, you know how we talk about how they need to double it to break even, or, you know, those conversations that we have in regards to how much money they need to make based on the budget in regards to breaking even, is the tax cuts that they ever get ever taken into consideration? Because maybe there are some things that are making money that we're assuming aren't making money based on the calculations that we're working on, whereas they're getting
but those tax cuts aren't big enough to cover some of those losses, man. Like, I guarantee you, Snow White,
fair.
no matter what kind of tax cut
100%.
Snow White gets, they're going to lose money on that.
I agree.
Well, and see, we're
hold on a
talking about
second.
apples and oranges here, though, real quick, because you're talking about movies versus like a streaming show or movie where they're hiding that. See, that's the thing. And this is why I've always compared the streaming networks to the underwear gnomes, right? Because they still haven't told us how they're making a profit.
No,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
a show
desperate to get off the Star
What
Wars talk.
constitutes success when all you're basing it on is subscription model? Like, how do you actually?
We're moving on from
judge
Star
success?
Wars.
Well, it's a little beyond Star Wars now anyway, because this is for every show and movie that's on streaming. But yeah.
We got it in, though, chat. We got it in.
They
Good
put
job.
Mufasa on this list, which is crazy because that movie, the word is still
surprised.
out. The word is still out. ABC News, though, totally a loss because they had to send $15 million plus lawyer bills to Trump. Quickly settled. And did you see that the guy that's going to be Trump's FCC guy's like cussing out Bob Iger?
No.
Did you see that? Yeah, he sent him like a letter. You can look it up and read it. It's public. It's like an open letter. But he just cusses out Iger and basically calls him a piece of shit for letting the news be nothing but propaganda.
And I agree, Dr. Coffinails Andor was shit.
Didn't watch it.
Sorry,
Think
that's
so.
just my opinion.
Didn't watch it. I tried to watch it. I watched the first 2 episodes and was bored.
You watch.
Everyone's
Skeleton
like, you
Crew,
gotta
though,
watch
didn't-
the first 4. It's like, I don't know if I can get through 2 more.
You're
This
watching
fucking
Skeleton Crew, though,
slog.
aren't you, Flash?
No.
Heard you're enjoying it.
Nope.
Really getting
Have
into
not
it.
watched it.
Loving the elephant kid. I heard
That's
you
the
wanna
worst
ship-
part
I
about
heard you wanted to
streaming
ship
now.
him.
The
I heard
worst
you
part
wanted
about
to ship
streaming
him.
now is that they're like, oh, you need to get past the first 2 seasons and then it gets great.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch 2
Remember
seasons.
when
I
there
don't
was
have
a
the fucking time for that.
Remember when there was
Most
a
people
pilot
don't.
episode, and the pilot episode used to just be like almost a little self-contained story or something like that, and then like
They
it
don't make
blew
shows
up
like that
into something
anymore.
better.
Because
That's
those were
just-
filmed a year before the show even started. if you
Well,
just
they don't even
Yeah.
make shows like that anymore. See, and this is something that like Script Doctor and Paul Chato have talked about extensively on our morning shows, because they used to have the pilot season where a lot of people, where that was kind of like how they made their nut in Hollywood. They never
Yeah.
actually worked on any shows. They just did a bunch of pilots all the
Yep.
time. And really, because when you think about it, they do like hundreds of pilots or over 100 some pilots every year, and only 24 shows would get picked up, right?
Yeah.
So very few of them would actually go on. And out of those 24 shows, at least half of them would get axed and then picked up, then they'd throw in another 6 or 7 shows in there to fill in and see if they get picked up. But yeah, they don't do that anymore. When they greenlight a show, this is why the Acolyte costs, or not Acolyte, Andor cost $600 million, not to go back to Star Wars, but that was just the recent thing we were talking about, is because they just greenlit 2 seasons without testing anything, right? They didn't do any pilot episodes. They didn't test any groups or anything like that to see if the show would even be interesting to anybody. They just go ahead and make the show like a movie, and they can't adjust anything. They can't change anything down the road. In this world right now that we live in, you'll never get an Urkel. You'll never
Yeah.
get a surprise hit or a show that can kind of like reconfigure itself and kind of come back from, like being an okay show.
I don't
to a
even
great
think you could
show.
do a Fresh Prince of Bel
Wait,
Air
hold on.
right
No,
now.
hell no.
They
Hell
just
no.
tried to. They did a serious version, which who the
We've-
fuck is asking for
I
that?
don't
We've
like
talked
it.
about-
No,
First off, real quick
No.
here, Pathfinder.
But what I mean with
One
that
Piece,
is,
One Piece is good from the start.
well, that's based
You don't
on
need to
something that's
watch-
already.
You don't need to
One
watch
Piece-
300 episodes.
That's
it's good right at the beginning.
That's
One-
adapting something. My point is like Steve Urkel became a hit because he was a one-off character on an episode of Family Matters. He wasn't supposed to be anything else. And then next thing you know, he becomes the focal point of the entire show, and the show skyrockets in popularity because of him.
Yeah, that's
You
become a
can't have
trope.
those moments anymore.
That's become a
Yeah.
trope, man.
We've
If
talked
something
about
becomes
that.
popular, the show's already filmed and in the can. They can't go back and change it now. They can't reconfigure anything.
You
can't
don't
do
get
anything.
the reorganization at mid-season where they start taking on other character arcs because they did so well in the
Exactly.
first
Yeah.
half of the season. Yeah.
Because
Right.
they kind of split the season up into either 2 or 3s, like you were just
The
saying, Brett, and
holidays,
that's
yeah.
the point. Yeah. So
Mm.
if like something hits big, like in the first part of the season, they can adjust for that in the second part. And they can't do that anymore because the show's already done it in the can a year before it comes out on Disney Plus or Netflix or whatever. Yeah.
Remember in The Office they did that that Schrutz farm.
Oh, that was crazy. Yeah, that was like a backdoor pilot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so bad too. This is my
Well,
cousin Bretta.
But that's how they used to do things though back in the day, man.
I know.
There'd be a backdoor pilot in the middle of a season, just completely random. They did it with Married with Children. There was that
Or a
one with
TV movie. Yeah.
when
every
Matt LeBlanc.
procedural that I love has had its spin-offs done through backdoor pilots that come out like at episode 9 or 10 in the
Yeah.
middle of season 4.
Sometimes it works though. The Jeffersons came from All in the Family.
Oh, All in the Family is probably one of the most successful shows ever for having
I agree.
spin-offs.
I totally agree.
Happy
'Cause-
Days is the second, probably, considering.
Did
and
Happy
then,
Days
yeah.
it came from that show?
No, Happy Day. Well, I'm saying you have All in the Family, which had at least I think 4 or 5 spin-offs, and at
Yeah.
least three of them were successful. Happy Days had at least 3 or 4 spin-offs where most of them were successful.
Yep.
Except for like
Laverne and
Joni and
Shirley came from
Yeah, Laverne and
Happy
Shirley.
Days.
Mork and Mindy came from there.
Mork and Mindy, yeah.
Yeah, the only one that didn't come, or the only one that wasn't successful that came from there, but is still a joke that we talk about to this day, is Joni Loves Chachi or
Oh
whatever.
God, that was bad. That was so bad. But yeah.
Yep.
No, all of the Norman Lear shows, they all
Exactly, yeah.
spin off each other, and they were all good.
Yeah.
Well, I saw they said that like CBS was the highest ranked network of the year this year. It's just they don't do as well in advertising because they run older as far as their target demographic. And that's because they don't take any risks on shows anymore. They've just renewed.
That's
all
been
of the same
CBS
things.
forever, Brett.
Yeah, forever.
We need to go back, Brett. We need to go back.
Well, I've been watching Seinfeld
Pardon me
lately,
asking,
man.
but does your husband do a lot of the cooking over your house?
He does all of it. He loves it.
Oh, well, ain't you a little afraid of what people could think?
You mean that I'm a lazy wife?
No, that he's a fag.
Dude, I honestly, the things they said back in those shows, you could never get away with now, man.
I was just gonna say that too. Like, yeah.
I watched an episode of Sanford and Son the other night because I have the satellite thing where they show all the old shows. I saw an episode of Sanford and Son where they were in a courtroom, and Fred Sanford said, and I shit you not, and this was on national TV.
Fucking, I love Sanford and Son.
And he's like, and I'm quoting here.
I grew up watching that show on Nick and Night.
He was in court, and the jury was all black. And I swear, he said, and again, this is a quote, so don't get on my ass about this. He said, there are enough niggas in here to film a Tarzan movie. I was like, what?
Well, Verbo, I bring it up all the time, man. I saw Blazing Saddles for the first time on television, right? And the funny thing was they cut out the farts in the fart scene, like the sound effect. The guys are just eating beans now in the TV cut. But they didn't cut one N-word out of that movie.
Wow.
That was crazy shit. Like on
They could
national
say it
TV,
all the
like,
time back then. Yeah.
It makes me think of Predator. You know, when
I'm
they're in
sorry,
the
but
chopper?
the funniest shit ever in that movie is when he's like, "Good morning, madam," and she just like straight up is like, "Up yours, N-word."
Yeah.
He's like,
it was
"What?"
crazy stuff.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I've been rewatching Seinfeld lately. I never really watched the entire show in its entirety, and I'm sitting here watching it. Like, half those episodes wouldn't be made now, and that show's tame in comparison to most of the shit we talk about.
Oh, Seinfeld, yeah. Yeah.